Hi, and welcome to Motivation Mondays with Lois. My name is Lois Goodell, and I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. I'm also the founder of the Facebook group Mosaic Families Connecting and also the coaching program Mosaic Transformation Academy. Within the Academy, I work with parents who are struggling with the challenges and changes of blending a family. I help them work together with each member so that they will have a sense of belonging, that they will feel heard, understood, and have a degree of happiness within the family. By doing this, they move from struggling to having strong mutual bonds, respect for each other, and appreciation in the family. Today, I have a question I want to ask you. And the question is this an ultimatum or is this behavior modification? And I ask that question because a lot of times parents think that they're modifying their child's behavior when actually they're issuing them an ultimatum. So, for a working definition of ultimatum today, ultimatum is really when you want to change a behavior immediately, and so you offer a threat. And a lot of times when people do this is because they're desperate. Parents become desperate in a situation, so they give you an ultimatum and then a threat right after it. An example of this would be you're at the grocery store and your child won't get in the car. And everyone's looking at you, and now you're starting to feel desperate. And so you say to them, either get in the car or I'm going to leave you. Well, we know you're probably not going to leave your child, but you say that get in the car or I'm going to leave you. That would be an example of wanting a behavior change immediately and then giving a threat. Or you might say, either get in the car or when you get home, you won't get any dinner. Again, I'm desperate. And so I want an immediate change. And so I'm going to give you a threat. Now, behavior modification is different. With behavior modification, you're trying to change a undesirable behavior. You're trying to modify it with some type of process or method over a period of time. You're either trying to decrease something or increase something. And the key words to look at is you're going to have a process or a method, and it's going to take a period of time. Now, there are four different types of behavior modifications, and they fall under two categories. They'll either fall under the category of a discipline or a reinforcement. And I'll give you examples of both of them. So, under discipline, a negative punishment would be, let's just say your child isn't doing their homework and you want them to do their homework. And so, as a negative punishment, you'd say, either you'll do your homework or I'll take away your electronic device if that's what you're using as a punishment. So that would be negative because there's a punishment for a behavior that you're trying to change. Or another example would be a positive punishment. Now, you might be wondering, how can a punishment ever be positive? Well, think about the word positive as you're adding a consequence, and it's a positive consequence that you're adding. So, for instance, let's just say that your child is bullying another child. And so you want that to stop. So you would say to them, you're going to write a letter to this child that you're bullying. It's positive because the consequence is positive, but it's still a punishment because it's not something that your child wants to do. So that would be an example of discipline, a negative punishment and a positive punishment. Now let's look at reinforcement. An example of a reinforcement would be your child is doing their homework and you want them to continue. And so you could either praise them, I'm so happy you're doing your homework, keep up the good work, or you could give them a consequence, a positive consequence. You did your homework, so now you get 20 extra minutes to play on your electronic device. Or another example of a reinforcement would be, let's just say that your child it's a negative reinforcement. Your child gets in the car and they're constantly complaining and you want them to stop complaining. So you want to change that behavior that they're doing. And so you turn on the radio so you can't hear them. And so now not only can they not hear themselves complain, but you can't hear them either. Now, the next time they get in the car, they won't complain because they know you'll turn on the radio. So again, you're trying to increase a behavior, which is to make them stop complaining by turning on the radio. So the reason why I like to look at ultimatums and behavior modification is because in blended families, a lot of times parents are thinking that they're changing their behavior, but they're really just giving them an ultimatum. And a lot of times an ultimatum, even though given out of frustration and desperation, it may work if it's something negative enough, but it'll only be short-lived, short-term. But with behavior modification, you want to give them something that's going to continue over time. And in order for this to happen, there has to be some specific things in place. One thing that has to happen is it has to be consistent. You can't give them a punishment or a consequence one time and then the next time you do something different. So, for instance, if you gave them a timeout for a behavior and the next time they did that behavior, and instead of giving them a timeout, oh, I'm tired, I don't feel like doing it, just go do whatever you want. Well, now the behavior modification isn't going to work because you're not consistent with it. The next thing that has to happen is the adults have to be on the same page, whether it's the adults in the house or if they're going over the grandparents' house or wherever they're at with adults, you all have to be doing the same thing. You have to agree on the same thing. If we agree that this is going to happen, then it has to happen at your house. It has to happen at dad or mom's house, at grandparents' house. There has to be that consistency and that agreement with the adults. And then the last thing that has to happen is it has to be some type of consequence or punishment that fits the child. So let's just say if your child could care less about electronic devices. Well, that's not going to work as a negative punishment because they don't like electronic devices anyway. But let's say they love to read. They love to read books. They really get caught up in the mysteries or the romance books. Now that would be a punishment that would be effective. So you have to find out what's going to be effective for each child. So for my Motivation Monday, I want you to think about when you're trying to do some type of discipline with your child. Is this an ultimatum I'm giving them, or am I really trying to modify them?